Now, for more on the British economy, we're joined by Professor Iain Begg from the European Institute at the London School of Economics. Welcome to the show.
Good evening to you.
Now, what's your reaction to Mark Carney's address?
Well, I'm afraid I have to say I agree with nearly all he's saying. There is considerable uncertainty surrounding the British economy, part of it economic, but also the political uncertainty because the government is fighting it amongst itself about which particular approach to take to Brexit. Do we want to be in the single market and the customs union or not? Do we want to control immigration or not? Those are the crucial questions which the government is yet to resolve, and the other side sees it. The European Union's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, a Frenchman, looks at what's going on in London and despairs.
So with that picture looking at Brexit, how does this new data change the picture of whether this is going to be a hard or a soft Brexit?
Well, hard and soft Brexit has been terminology used to refer to whether Britain stays very closely linked to the EU, which is a soft Brexit, a bit like Norway's relationship, or has a much more distant relationship like Canada has at present with the European Union. What's now changing is that where the British economy seemed to be very resilient in the 6 months following the referendum last year, it now looks as though things are going wrong in the British economy. It's turning sour. The rate of growth, which enabled ministers to say Britain was the fastest growing of the G7 economies, is now the slowest growing of the G7 economies. The inflation rate is picked up, and that is squeezing consumers because wages are not rising to keep pace with inflation. There are longer-term problems about the lack of investment in the economy that Mark Carney was talking about, which is not just this year and the next couple of years, but has been the case for the last 5 or 6 years with a very low investment rate.
Now, the Bank of England revealed that the eurozone economy has actually grown twice as quickly as the UK, and the UK economy is likely to remain sluggish. How long do you think this is going to happen, and why is this happening?
Well, one reason it's happening is that the eurozone economy, the core of the European Union, is picking up after an extremely bad period up to 2015. You know all the problems about Greece, but it wasn't just Greece. It was Italy, France, and others who were growing slowly. They've had emergency action in the form of very heavy quantitative easing from the European Central Bank, and that slowly has caused a recovery. At the same time, Britain's recovery seems to have petered out, and what we're now seeing is a reversal of positions. Britain doing well up to 2015 and suddenly doing not so well, and the other side doing better. Now, that ought to be good for Britain, because if your biggest market is growing more rapidly than it used to be, you should be doing better as a result of it. And that's one of the causes for concern.
Now, you mentioned one of the causes. What do you see as the biggest obstacles right now in the UK economy?
Well, apart from the uncertainty, which is around Brexit, the UK economy has had a very poor record on productivity growth. There were figures out a couple of weeks ago from our National Statistical Office, which revealed that British productivity is now below the level it was in 2007, the start of the financial crisis. Not to have had productivity growth at all over a decade is unheard of. That's one of the fundamentals, and that in turn is linked to this low rate of investment that Mark Carney was talking about and the failure to address the skills gaps in the economy.
So which industries would you say have been the most impacted, both for better and for worse?
Well, Britain has a very small manufacturing sector these days. It's only about 10% of GDP. So it's the service economy which is crucial to the way the British economy develops. The City of London is a big export earner. You know that because it rivals New York, it rivals Singapore, and is an order of magnitude above all the other European financial centres. If that City of London economy is damaged, it's going to be bad for the British economy overall, not just for jobs, but because of the capacity of that sector of the economy to generate tax revenue. If that goes, the public finances will be in difficulty.
Now, how does what's happening in the UK change its dynamic with its other major trade partners like the US?
Well, we've heard the promises from the White House that in spite of the emphasis on America first, Donald Trump is prepared to give the British government a very rapid and comprehensive trade deal. I would say that's a bit far-fetched. You don't do trade deals quickly. That's the lesson from the last 50 years of negotiating them. So the idea that somehow the US is going to come to the rescue of the British economy is probably exaggerated. And the same applies to other major economies like China. They may want trade deals, but they aren't going to be done quickly, where quickly means Britain leaving the EU within a couple of years. You are not going to get a trade deal in that time window.
Certainly a long road between now and the negotiation path. Thank you so much, Dr. Iain Begg, Professor at the European Institute of the London School of Economics.